I'm Mel.
And I'm Janelle.
And this is the Murder Mamas. Welcome, everyone. So tonight we're going to be talking about How I Caught My Killer. It's a Hulu episode, season 2, episode 1. So you can find it on there. We open with Sasha, who is 27 years old.
Did you almost say
I almost did it because it says that on my paper. But everywhere else I have Sasha, so I don't know why I put Tasha.
Okay.
So she's like really into reading and writing and poetry and all this good stuff. She lives in
She's a Mennonite.
Mennonite.
So when they were setting it up, I really thought we were going to be like taking place in, I don't know, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so did I.
Because Amish country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked
Yeah.
when it said New Mexico. I was like, what?
Yeah, I wouldn't think of New Mexico.
And she's from Texas.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
okay.
Totally random. Yeah, so they're kind of like Amish people where they dress in the prairie dresses.
She wears like the bonnet.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's called a bonnet. It's
I
called a
don't know.
bonnet, right?
I'm
It's
sure.
like the little head.
Yeah. I'm sure
covering.
that's what it's called. Yeah.
Some of them, so there's like a spectrum to Mennonite-ness.
Yes. Yeah.
And so some of them have no phones or like technology. They're like a step down from Amish.
Right.
So she was a woman of the world.
Yes.
She utilized some technology.
Which they do frown upon. Like they're not into, like most of them are not into the internet or anything like that. But there are some that do prefer that, and that's okay.
Yeah, like I don't think she had any social media or anything like that. Like she didn't go that far.
No.
But she definitely like was a very, like they say it multiple times throughout the documentary, like she was such a woman of the world and like so curious about everything in the world. And she had a job and like succeeded. She went to school. She had roommates. Like
so she could leave like the village. I don't know what to call it. The compound. She could leave. Like they can leave and come back and have jobs and everything.
Yeah, so. Like you're not shunned from leaving the community like you would be if you were Amish.
Yes. And so she moves from Texas and then goes to New Mexico and her parents still live in Texas. So she becomes a Mennonite by herself. And so 2020 comes around and Sasha disappears.
January 18th, 2020. Yes. Right before lockdown.
Right before lockdown, yes. And it's very weird because she always comes home. She's not... she's there at 9. I think they had a 9 o'clock curfew. So she's always back home by 9.
Yeah, so she went missing. She was getting supplies for the Sunday school outside of the church. And she was living in Farmington, New Mexico.
Yeah. So people are starting by 9 p.m. Her roommate's like, okay, I don't know where she is. Maybe I should say something. And so they start checking to see around like where she is. After 4 hours of searching, they break down and call the police, which they don't normally do. They try to figure out things within their own society. So the police step in and we meet Steven, and he's the detective that works on this. The last time they saw her was after dinner. She was driving down to the church
to get those supplies.
Her car was still at the church when they began searching for her. And they found the keys to the vehicle and they found her wallet, right?
Correct, yeah. They found all of her like personal information.
So like, why would you leave your car without any of those things?
Correct. Well, and how far could you get without money?
Without money,
Or a car.
Or a car, for that matter, yeah.
So then they sort of start having to look and wonder, like...
Yeah.
Who did this?
Right, yeah. So 5 hours go by, and there's no signs of foul play. And they say if someone was going to take her, she probably knew the person or like had an idea of who the person was because none of this stuff happens in this community. They are like at a like standstill of like what is going on. Then we learn a little bit about her background. She comes from Texas and she converts to Mennonite when she is 12. So she moves away.
She didn't move away from her family when
I
she
think
was
she
12.
did. Yeah, I think she did. No?
How do you move away from her family
She
when you're
converts
12?
when she was 12.
I think her family.
But they weren't in the Mennonite community.
Am I? So where did she just left?
I guess.
No.
I have here she converts when she is 12.
I think that was like a personal conversion.
Oh, okay.
She did not leave.
Okay.
Like she chose a different religion than the rest of her family.
Okay. That's probably why. Okay.
Because she had a good relationship with her family still.
Yeah,
up
she
until
did.
the time she went missing. Like
Sure.
she visited them a few weeks before she went missing for the holidays.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like she had no contact with her family. She
Sure.
was in contact with them regularly.
Yeah. And we meet Chester, who's the talking head, and he says people who come to the compound don't really leave. Like, so it's a good, like, they're not as strict as most places are. So people feel comfortable there and they're allowed to do things that most other compound places are not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And in 2018, she moves from Texas and works at the publisher house or publishing place for a while and speaks 3 different languages. So she's very smart. Yeah. Then we have 7 hours that she's missing. And they're like, did she run away or did she get captured? What?
Sorry, I'm laughing because you're like, she moved there when she was 12. And then you're like, in 2018, she moved there. Like, you just needed to read one more sentence to be reminded of the true timeline.
Okay, you know what? My notes are very sporadic.
Always. I like the chaos
Yeah.
that it brings.
That's my brain. Okay, and then 8 hours go by, and that's when they finally decide to call her parents. I was like, could you call a little bit sooner? Because if I was a parent, I would want to know if my child was missing.
I mean, I get it, yes. But
She's an adult.
She's an adult. And I also think, like, I mean, not when I was 27, but, like, when I was younger, sometimes I didn't talk to people for 8 hours.
Right.
And I didn't want people
But,
to
like,
call
they
my
had a
parents.
specific curfew at 9. So, like, they knew, and she obeyed that. Like, she's never not been at home.
I mean, I get that, yeah.
So that's why I want to, like, call a little bit sooner.
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
it's not like it would have done anything.
And so the cops are like, this is a very hard case to follow because there's no digital footprint of her. She didn't have a social media account. She didn't go on the internet and like post things about herself. She didn't go on different threads, like, you know, trying to find stuff and, you know, talk about anything. So there's nothing about her on the internet. And
Correct.
the cops are saying that's really weird. Like we are used to having a digital footprint. Like we could go back to Facebook or Instagram and see their friends, see where they're at, like follow their footsteps.
Well, and even get an understanding of people
Yeah.
they may be talking to that
Yeah.
other people wouldn't know.
Exactly.
Like, there's just none of that information
Yes.
for her.
So we know that she actually has a phone. I don't think it's a smartphone. It's just a flip phone.
Standard flip.
So she has that. They interview her boss.
They really think her boss did it.
Yeah. Well, because
For a minute.
Yeah. Because they interview him and they're asking him questions and he's answering, but then when they walk out of the room,
He starts crying.
he starts crying. And like they're like thinking, "Oh, is he crying because he thinks he got caught? Or is he crying because he actually likes her and like respects her? You know, like why is this person crying?"
Or is he crying because there's like romantic involvement?
Right.
Like, why are you crying? But also, like, that's a really weird sort of reasoning. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's okay to feel sad if someone that you work with on a regular basis goes missing. Like,
Yeah, sure.
tears seems like a normal.
Yeah.
Like, if that were a female boss, would they have had the same line of questioning?
No, absolutely
Of course not,
Yeah.
because that would be more expected.
Right.
So it was like a little bit of like a gender
Yeah.
bias
Yeah.
really at play with their intense focus on him very briefly.
And the reason why that is because he saw her at the church, and he was the last person to see her pretty much alive. So, they break it down, and you're like, what else are we going to be looking for? He went somewhere with his wife, and that was 10 minutes away from where Sasha was supposed to be. And so they found out that he had an alibi and it wasn't him.
Well, and they also so they start looking at the pings of her cell phone and his.
Yeah.
Because he also had a cell phone.
Right.
And so when they look at those pings, they see that they were at the same spot. And then she goes one way and he goes the other way.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, it's definitely not him.
Yeah.
So then they sort of follow the pings of her cell phone.
Yeah.
And it takes them from Farmington, New Mexico, over past Crater Lake National Park.
Yeah.
Into Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona.
I didn't think, was it Phoenix?
Yeah. Phoenix.
Yeah, it takes her into Arizona.
Yeah. 250 miles away from where she lives.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, she's obviously not driving there because her car's still.
Well, and then they go there and it's just this area of open, rural open land where there's
a national park.
nothing there.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so we have to search, I don't know.
Yeah.
What did he say? 2,500 square miles or something?
Huge.
A huge area of just nothing with no indication on where to start.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah. And so then they get a phone call, the police get a phone call from a hiker who actually found a body.
Yeah.
And they fly out there, right? The FBI or the police from...
Why are you asking me a question?
I don't know. They fly out there to identify her, and the moment they said that she was wearing a prairie dress and a bonnet, they're like, okay, that must be her.
Yeah, so she's located outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, which is...
Oh, I said Phoenix.
You
oh,
did.
sorry. Okay,
it's not Phoenix. It's Flagstaff.
Okay, you're right. I have Flagstaff right here.
I know. I was like, you're saying Phoenix, but you mean Flagstaff.
Yes.
My brother went to college in Flagstaff. And I went to Flagstaff 1,000 million times during my childhood.
Okay, yep.
So she's found... And that's in northern Arizona up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And... It's a very, they tell you, it's a very quiet town. It's a college town.
Yeah.
What's there is a college.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of murders.
No. Not any, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they just don't have them.
And so this was very out of the ordinary for them. My brother did tell me that homeless people would freeze because it would get so cold.
No.
I know.
They didn't have shelters? Or some of them just don't want to go to a shelter. Oh, God.
Yeah, because it snows there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks
anyway,
for that.
Sorry. So
they find her.
And they roll her, she's laying face down.
Yeah.
And they roll her over to conduct the autopsy. And they really think that there's signs of sexual assault because she has no underwear on.
Yeah.
And
her hands were bound.
Her hands are tied in front of her at the wrist.
Duct tape. Yeah.
Yeah, duct tape. And they find that she's shot.
Yeah.
And
she has blunt force trauma to her head.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when they do the autopsy, they don't find any signs of sexual assault. So it's why is she not wearing underwear?
Right. That's weird.
Very weird.
It's a keepsake probably for the killer. That's what I would guess. If they didn't find it around the scene anywhere. Because I'm pretty sure she would wear underwear. They're very modest, So I'm thinking it's not like she's going to go out without underwear on.
It was laundry day. So they obviously identify that it's her.
Yeah.
And then they let her community and her family know.
Yeah. And they actually bring back Sasha's boss to ask him if he knows anything or knows who a person that would do this to her. Yeah.
And there's no one.
Because she lives in that little community and that's the only people that she knows, basically. Yeah. So we learn that because she's a writer, she spends a lot of time writing to inmates, and just writing to other people too, like pen pals and stuff. Like that's just her thing. And people in an outreach program. Like she just befriends people and writes them. I mean, what else are you gonna do with your time? She starts writing to a guy who was in jail and then he was released. And he was in the Air Force, stationed in Phoenix.
I don't remember him being in jail.
No, was he not in jail?
Okay.
What the fuck?
I don't remember that at all.
Maybe I'm making that up.
I think you're making that up.
Okay.
Because, like, if...
But they started pen paling somehow. Like, that's how... Oh, no, he was stalking her. That's right.
He went to this community because he wanted to, like... He said he wanted to connect with other Mennonites. So.
Okay. He was a Mennonite at some point, and then he decided to leave. Okay.
I was just breathing. So his name is Gooch. You know his last name's Gooch.
Okay, Mr. Gooch.
What was his first name?
I don't know. I have he.
Oh my god, Melissa. Mark.
Okay.
So he was 21, like you said. Yeah. And he grew up in Wisconsin as a Mennonite. Mm-hmm. And he only went to school through 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then nothing else.
Right.
And then he left the Mennonite church and went and joined the Air Force. So he like went the opposite direction.
Right.
But he must be smart.
I would think so.
Because you have to be smart to join the Air Force.
Sure. I think he's very intelligent.
And so I liked when they interviewed like people who were stationed with him.
Yeah.
And they were like, he's weird.
Yeah. It comes into play.
Well, what they really said was like, he doesn't have good social skills.
And he had a scary looking face. Like his face was hardened.
Yes. And he was very,
when you talked to him,
very serious, very yes, ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Like,
which is probably a combination of the Mennonite community and then the Air Force. Like you have to, that's how you talk. And he just brought that out into the regular world. And so people thought, I have his friend Alex says that they made friends, but like at first he was scary looking, you know, he was at attention all the time and it was just kind of weird, but then they ended up becoming pals. So yeah, you never know. Okay, so he would get texts. Mark has 3 brothers, and he would get texts with 2 of his brothers that were very hateful texts. They all went the opposite direction as well. They came out of the Mennonite community, and they would text each other like, hey, look at this one, we could kill that one, and all these like bad sorts of texts. So I don't know. The investigators came back with Sasha was killed with a .22 caliber gun, and Mark took his .22 caliber gun off base and hid it.
So the police were able to use cell phone and financial records as well as surveillance video to tie him to the crimes.
Right.
So it was shown that he left the Air Force Base where he was stationed in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. He drove north past Flagstaff through Navajo Nation to Farmington.
Yeah, that's right. So they had the same, like they were looking for pings on her cell phone to see where she was going. And they found a ping of Mark's cell phone that was traveling the exact same time and the exact same place.
For up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then her phone drops off. And they continue to follow his phone.
Yes.
And it leads them to where her body was.
Right. And the detectives uncovered chilling messages in which Mark had harassed Shasta, threatening her while she rebuffed his advances. So I guess he was like totally going after it. They have surveillance footage from a gas station which placed Mark's car near the wooded area where Sasha's body was found the night she disappeared. The final piece of the puzzle came from DNA evidence, a hair found on Shasta's Shasta's clothing. Sasha?
Oh, Melissa.
I'm completely sober too.
Melissa. Yeah, so the police presumed that, like, he didn't suspect that she would have a phone on her.
Right.
And so probably they heard, like, a text, like a notification of some sort come through her phone. And that's when he, like, threw it off of her body.
Right. And he thought he was getting pulled in for a speeding ticket or something. Remember that? Like, he didn't realize what he was getting pulled in for.
Correct.
Or he never thought, because they don't have cell phones, so that never even entered his mind. That the Mennonites, lots of them don't have cell phones. So,
Well, I mean,
he was like...
he had to have known that she had a phone because he threw it out the window.
No, I know, but before this happened, like, he probably didn't realize she had one on her. Yeah.
Which is what I just said.
Oh, okay.
I did find it really funny because one of the, like, talking heads or whatever is like, you know, he joined the military and they're always so, like,
No.
upstairs. I'm like, have you not realized that every serial killer I've ever talked about has been in the military?
Yeah.
Like, it's serial killer bingo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, so that's how they connect him, but then they arrest him.
Yeah.
He doesn't at first admit to it.
No.
But he says that he went. So at first he's like, no, I didn't leave. Like, I didn't go past Flagstaff.
Yeah.
And then he's like, actually, I did. And I was, like, traveling just to go see, like, what, you know, I wanted to connect with, like, my past faith.
Right.
So I knew that there was a Mennonite community in this area of New Mexico. So that's what I was doing.
Right. And he was looking for a Saturday night sermon, and they didn't have one on Saturday night. So that's why that was, like, debunked. Like, no, you weren't doing that.
Yeah. Well, and then it's like the investigator's like, okay, and so what time did you get back to base? And he's like, maybe like 2 a.m.
Right.
And she's like, okay. So you know that you live somewhere that's, like, highly surveilled and records everything. And
lots of cameras.
Actually didn't get back until 6 in the morning.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I didn't realize it was that late.
Yeah. Oh, 4 hours?
Oh, I just thought the sun rises at 2 a.m. now. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
So they ended up going to trial, and they were kind of freaking out because they didn't have any DNA evidence that could tie them together. But they did have that ping with the phone, and that was pretty hard to ignore because it was traveling the exact same route.
The same speed, the same time.
Speed,
like,
the same time. Like, that doesn't happen.
It wasn't like she was in a car near him and coincidental. Like, it was, they were together.
Yeah, yeah. So they find him guilty, and her parents ask to take the death penalty off the case because I don't know why.
Because God.
Yeah, because God. So he's serving life in jail.
I did like that one of the investigators says that in their mind this is a hate crime. Like, this is a religious hate crime. Oh, for sure. Because he should have been tried for a hate crime.
Yeah.
Like, he had such disdain for the Mennonite church that he grew up in that he wanted to go and harm someone who was in that church.
Yeah. And, like, there were texts that they found on his phone with his brothers that were, like, totally...
Oh my gosh, wasn't it? I pulled over a Mennonite family.
Yeah, because the one guy's a cop.
Mm-hmm. His brother was a cop. I pulled over a Mennonite family going to a wedding, and, like, I took a really long time processing them, like, just to fuck with them.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, you get them. Like, it was very, like...
Yeah.
I mean, they probably have religious trauma, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's true. But still, you don't have, like, they took it a little too far, in my opinion.
Well,
the brothers. He took it too far. He took it way too far.
He definitely took it too far.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he is in prison, and he will remain in prison for the remainder of his life.
Yep.
Peace out. That's it. Bye. You're right.
Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at
The Murder Mamas.
And TikTok.
The Murder Mamas 2.
It's the number 2. And YouTube.
The Murder Mamas.
And email us at
themurdermamas@gmail.com.
Thanks.
Bye.